Hey babies, this is our mini lesson on characterization. And what I want you to understand is characterization is how a writer shows us the heart of the characters in a novel. As you've been following your hyperdoc, we have looked at the different types of characters, dynamic and static, and we looked a little bit at characterization through some great movies. But now is a more focused mini lesson on what characterization is and how we're going to identify, more specifically, indirect characterization using a mnemonic device. So let's look right here at direct characterization. Characterization is the difference between showing and telling. Direct characterization is when the writer or the author directly tells you very explicitly the personality of the character. Looking at the example, the patient boy and the quiet girl were both well-mannered and did not disobey their parents. There is no wiggle room, that the boy's being described as patient and the girl's being described as quiet. It is clear cut, no ifs, ands, or buts. Direct characterization is when the author tells you, as the reader, the personality of the characters or character traits about the personality. Whereas indirect characterization requires you to infer into a lot of inference based on the STEAL acronym. It's when, as opposed to just telling you, it's when the author shows you the personality of the character through different methods. STEAL, speech, thoughts, the effects of others toward the character. How do they interact with other characters? Their actions and what they look like, how they dress, things of that nature. So in speech, what does the character say? What type of diction does the author use on the character? What types of things does the character say about the topics or the novel, the themes? Thoughts. When the character is thinking to themselves, when they're speaking only to themselves, and you saw that in the video with Elsa. What is revealed through the character's private thoughts and feelings? Not directly, but through their private thoughts and feelings. Where they don't say, I feel so sad, but you can tell by what they're doing and how they speak as we look at the speech and the thoughts. How do they interact and how do they affect other people when the effect of others towards the character? How do the other characters behave in reaction to the character? If the main character is always irritating other people, that says something about their characterization, their personality. Actions. What do they actually do? How do they behave? Are they kind through their actions? Are they rude? And what do they look like? How are they described? What do they wear? And we talked about a lot in class sometimes about every day you walk in this building, you are indirectly characterizing yourself through what you say. If you're loud in the hallways, you might not know that teacher. You might not ever see that teacher. You might not ever have that teacher. But people draw conclusions and judgments, right or wrong, about you based on your indirect characterization, the things that you show about your character. Direct characterization is when I tell people I just love my babies to death. I'm telling someone you're a good person. But indirect characterization is what you show people. And sometimes people pay more attention to the indirect characterization than the direct characterization. So when you think about indirect characterization, think about this is the things that you show the world about yourself. Direct characterization is what other people say about you. It's like, who do you say that I am? Direct characterization is what other people say about you. Indirect characterization is what you show me through your speech, thoughts, your interactions and impact on others, your actions, and your looks. So let's look at some examples and see if we can figure this out. Remember, direct characterization is telling, and indirect characterization is showing. Let's look at this example and make it a little bit bigger for y'all. Good. Peter was bored with the TV program, but the remote control was all the way across the room, so he just watched it anyway. His sister will be home soon, and she could get the remote for him then. Now, that's not very direct, but we can pretty much tell that Peter's a pretty lazy fella. You won't get up and walk 2 feet across. You're going to wait for your sister to come home? I know none of my babies do that. So that is an indirect here. The author never said that Peter was lazy. He just drew a picture of what a lazy person would do, how they interact with other people, and things he used. Now, he didn't use all of the still acronyms, just some of them. An example of direct characterization is Peter was very lazy and never would shift himself more than was absolutely necessary. You don't need to read or infer into direct characterization. It just is what it is. You have to infer in indirect characterization because you have to read between the lines. So let's look at some examples. We're going to say, is it indirect or indirect? Direct or indirect? Number 1, Jane was a beautiful young woman. Is that a showing or a telling? What do you think? If you said that is direct characterization, you are correct. Why is that direct characterization? I did not have to infer about Jane's beauty. It was clear, and the author is telling me that Jane is a beautiful young woman. Remember, direct is telling, whereas indirect is showing. Okay, let's look at number 2. When Jane walked in the room, everybody stopped to stare at her. She commanded attention wherever she went. Is that indirect or direct? If you said indirect, you're correct, because we had to infer that there was something about Jane in her actions, in her interactions with other people, that makes her an enigma, makes her someone that people are talking about and looking at. Good, let's do a couple more. Let's go down to number 5 and 6. An old couple living near John's house considered him just like their own son. He would shop for them every day and get them whatever they needed. Is that direct or indirect? If you said indirect, you're correct, because this is someone else's opinion of John. And it doesn't say that he's a good boy. It just says that they consider him like his own son. So there you have other characters' interaction of John and his actions to justify why they believe that. He shops for them and gets them whatever they needed. So 5 is indirect. So let's think about number 6. John cared a lot for the well-being of others. There was an old couple living alone near his house, and John was so kind-hearted that he brought groceries daily for them. Is that indirect or direct? If you said direct, you're correct. It very clearly says John cares a lot for other people and he's kind-hearted, and it tells you why. Okay, so I'm glad we've had this mini lesson on characterization. So let's go back and remember. Characterization is a process by which writers reveal the heart or the personality of the characters in their stories or their plays. And they do it through one of 2 ways: direct characterization or indirect characterization. Direct characterization is a telling of the audience by the author or the writer of the personality. It does not require any inference skills. Whereas indirect characterization is about showing, that is revealed through what we would consider our 5 different methods. The Steele method, through their speech, their thoughts, their effect on others, their actions, and their looks. Thank you for your time and attention during this mini lesson. And let's keep going with this HyperDoc, babes.